Hello, BookTube. How's it going? Doing a Friday reads today. Even my life is pretty busy. I work 6 days a week, and then also have lots of house and family obligations. And also, I like to try and get some reading in. But I am gonna try and at least make a Friday reads every week. I think it's good to if I can get into the habit of making at least one video, knowing that I have to make the one video. And I think generally I will have enough reading done in the week to make it worthwhile. Most likely just be talking about the one book, but still. If not, I'll just have a little chatty update, probably about all the stuff going wrong that meant I couldn't read. But anyway, the first part of not business, but the first thing I'd like to mention in my Friday reads is thank you to everyone who has interacted with my channel, as new subscribers, old subscribers, people who just check in regularly. I posted in November, non-fiction November TBR, and the response to that was incredible. And the best chat and yeah, just overall interactions that I've probably had of any video. It was great. It was lovely talking with you all, and it was also really great watching everyone else's non-fiction November TBRs, and just such a great wide array of books. And it does really emphasize how fantastic non-fiction is, because it literally just encompasses everything. And people's interests really come out more, I think, when you read non-fiction. I find sometimes with fiction books, you can get a few repeating. Some people, like, it's perfectly great that people want to read, like, the hyped books, the buzz book. Someone you see 3 people rave about a book, you want to read it. Like, that's totally I get that. Like, it's totally understandable. And so then it kind of, I find it repeats itself in one booktube, and then you kind of get a bit of a saturation. But I find that a lot less with non-fiction. I don't know if it's just because there's less non-fiction readers, or but I think probably it's because non-fiction is definitely more about interest. Like, I think I'm less likely to pick up a book that someone raves about if it's something that I really don't have that much care for. I love to see other people's enthusiasm, and so I'll watch videos and be really excited for them. But I think I'm less likely to pick up the book unless I already have the slightest interest. Although, to be honest, if someone hands me a book, I'll read it. Like, I'm pretty flexible for reading books. But yeah, I think. But anyway, my point is, the non-fiction November has so far been just amazing. And so I'll talk a little bit about the book I'm reading, which is The Penguin History of Canada, by Robert Bothwell, who is, I believe, University of Toronto professor of history and other things. No, I can't remember. I said it in my non-fiction November video. I gave him his proper due, and next week I'll probably be more prepared. But I mean, it's nice. I like the picture. Penguin did a really good job. Penguin does a really good job on covers. There's not a lot of Penguin books that I don't like, cover-wise. I mean, firstly, my first impressions of this. I mean, first off, I think this is an incredibly thankless job to do a one-volume history. This is like of the actual writing. It's, I think, about 540 pages. The rest is the source material and glossary. It's a very thankless job to give a one-volume history of anything, any subject, especially such a vast history of a whole country, even a country that is as new as Canada, although it's not just restricted to Canadian history, as in 1867 to the present day. It's which present day for this would be like 2002, I think, because there's so much more before 1867. It I think gives a couple pages on prehistoric native history. There's not a ton known about that anyway. So it's very glances over real well. It really kicks in properly when it starts discussing the first European adventures. So first, like the Vikings, who just thought to reach land, but it's basically just to stop off in their fishing trips. They don't think they ever built settlements, and then really starts going when the French land in the 1600s. But it's really I've only read about 100 pages. I'm up to about the 7 Years' War in 1770 something. I think 1755 or something. I think it was when, around 1755. 1756 was, I think, the start of the 7 Years' War. So around about that period there. So I have not even reached Revolutionary America era. That's how far back I've gone, and I'm still how far back I am. But basically, I really like the writing style, even though it is a very thankless job because you just have to skim over so much that you can't really delve into it. Essentially, this period, pretty much from the French first arriving to the 7 Years' War, is just riven with conflict between France and England, both in Europe and in North America. It really is true, I think, when human history is just history of conflict. If you're looking on the kind of more macro scale, it's just war after war after war, and politics is essentially just, especially in these eras, politics is basically just gearing up for war. Well, international politics at least. And so so many wars. Very interesting though. I think definitely want to take a deeper dive into some of these wars, especially the 7 Years' War, because I think that was very instrumental in the whole history of North America. I think it really paved the way for the North America to be dominated by the British, and then obviously later on that led to the American Revolution. And then I guess the final thing I would like to say that I kind of just gotten to that's very important, that I would probably also like to take a deeper dive into so far, is the Acadians. They were French. So the Acadians they were French settlers. I think they came from a specific part of France. And the Acadians are actually linked to the Cajuns down in Louisiana. I think they're the same peoples, I think. But anyway, they were the first settler inhabitants of Nova Scotia. They had kind of fairly good relationships with the Mi'kmaq, and they were kind of simple farm folk. I think they basically came from, they were basically farmers from southern France as well. And yeah, so they had farmlands in Nova Scotia. They built quite a respectful, respectful settlements. Very well, kind of kept themselves, very family, fantastic farmers, and they were kind of caught between they were kind of caught between the French government of back home in France and kind of the government folk in Canada, and or what was called New France at that point, and the British. So the British took over Nova Scotia. So it was originally called Acadie, I believe. And it was part of New France, and then as part of a treaty settlement of one of the many wars between England and France at the time, Britain took it over, and on the agreement that and anyone could, the Acadians could stay. They could still be Catholics, because at that time England and Britain was fiercely Protestant. Like torture Catholics, fiercely Protestant. Like it was. I think at that point it was it was kind of illegal for a monarch to be a Catholic. There was a lot of for a while it to and fro between Catholic and Protestant monarchs, and eventually the Protestants just took over. And there was it's just massive sectarianism that is kind of still a bit rampant today. Obviously Northern Ireland, and Glasgow, and other parts of Scotland, but particularly Glasgow. But anyway, so the Acadians found themselves, they still had their homes. They didn't want to leave. New France was very, New France and France were very persuasive to try and get them to move to another part of New France, or to go back to France. But the Acadians had built really nice farms and were doing very well off the land, and so they didn't want to leave. They were quite fiercely independent. They were, their own people. And so they stayed as British subjects, but they said that they would not take up arms for Britain, especially against France or New France. And so, yeah, they cut off ties. They cut off ties to New France, really, and they became British. And it was fine for a while. And then eventually, France and New France kept needling Britain so bad. And where Nova Scotia is, it's really easy to get to it from Massachusetts, and there's good fishing around there too. So often, if Britain were needled by the France or New France, it's really easy just to attack from Massachusetts. And so eventually, after more wars and skirmishes and that, Britain just got so annoyed that they brutally cleared out Acadia of all the Acadians, and just made Nova Scotia completely British, not just by name, but by the people who lived there. And sadly, also, they burned down most of the farm. They just destroyed the Acadian civilization, and killed people. They also deported. They sent families, and sometimes they completely broke up families, sent them to Great Britain, to other parts of what is now Canada. It's really not. It was really a horrible, disgusting part of the history. And yeah, these Acadians really they just kind of wanted their own. They just wanted to get on with their own life. And there are still some Acadians in Canada today. I think I'm actually pretty sure I am. Pretty sure my great grandparents on my mother's side were Acadian. They were from an island in between Nova Scotia and Quebec, which is part of Quebec but closer to Nova Scotia. So, and I know people on the island now are Acadian and proud, and they'll fly the Acadian flag. And they'll also be really annoyed if you call them Quebecois, even though they are Quebecers. They don't speak Quebecois; they speak Acadian, which is a even more weird dialect of France, because I think it's basically kind of like a archaic dialect of French, but it's amazing. So yeah, I want to learn more about Canadians, and I think I do have that personal history there. And also, what's really nice, in Canada, I think originally maybe they started in the 80s, but they have these things called heritage minutes. So they used to show these at commercial breaks. And they're just really, literally 1 minute little histories of just Canadian history. And there is one, and it's a recent one, because they've started making them again. And they're so good. I just love them so much. But they made one about the Canadians, so I'll link that below if you watch. And yeah, I think as I go through this and talk about it, I think I will link more to those heritage minutes, because when I first came to Canada, as soon as I heard about them, I watched them and loved them. And I think they're either super cheesy or they're really well made. And most Canadians will have a nostalgia for them, and they're often quite quoted and stuff. So yeah. Anyway, I'm really enjoying this, even though it is such a thankless job to condense so much history into like such a little book. But it will really give me a good launching point into what I want to read further on. And yeah, I hope you're all doing well. Thank you to everyone for watching. And yeah, let me know below what you're reading what you're reading this week, what you're reading for nonfiction November. If you have any thoughts on the penguin history of Canada or anything. Anyway, yeah, hope you're all well. Yeah, see you all soon.